Hello and welcome to MediaSnack live from New York.
Greetings from London.
This is good. We're counting down next week, by the way. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. You can click down below and subscribe. We do a live show every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. UK time, and variations around the world. And if you click the little bell button, you'll get alerts, if you didn't know that already. Because you want to get alerted for next week as well, particularly because we're doing our typical end of year review, where normally David and I stand on a cold rooftop in London somewhere, but we won't be able to do that. We can do it virtually perhaps, but I've got snow here, maybe not a good idea. Today we are in part, we've got a two-part story, I think, with a brilliant guest, Chris Kenna, who part of the story is really linked to an ongoing discussion that we've been having, particularly this year, but an ongoing discussion about diversity and inclusion within marketing and with agencies. And we'll dig into that and reference some of the work that we've been doing with WFA and speaking to the WFA. But also, Chris, if you don't know, Chris is quite a brilliant entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur relative to some of us old dog entrepreneurs in the industry, with a really interesting story and a path into the industry. And I just love that it gives fresh eyes into how the industry works. And he's when we've spoken before, he says, don't call it an insight, but he does. He comes with an insight from the outside, which is really helpful. So that's really good to hear. Previous episodes, David, you and I talked to, in this theme, we talked to Belinda Smith, who is a well-established marketer and also an advocate, diversity ambassador for the WFA. A couple of weeks ago, we were speaking to Jerry Dakin, another well-known, well-established marketer, also diversity ambassador for the WFA. The WFA, I'd see how quickly I can say WFA each week. WFA is doing some amazing work. I think they're trying to encourage marketers to change behaviors internally and externally, most importantly. One of the things that we discussed with Belinda, we'll link to the episode because it was really good, was, we started to try and segment where the levers of control, if you like, that marketers had when it comes to this area. And we discussed it in three parts, if you remember. Yeah. There was the first bit, which as a marketer, you have content that you create, right? So you've got, you're making ads, right? So you want those ads to be reflective of the diverse makeup of at least your customer base, if not society. Yeah. Perhaps in order to do that well, you then want your own marketing team to be diverse, to at least represent your customer base, if not broader society. And thirdly, you have your, what we, dismissively sometimes call the supply chain, which is your agencies, vendors, publishers, technology partners, whatever it is, that, your external service partners. You can use influence on them to encourage them to be diverse and represent your customer base and society at large. So those are the three things. The one thing that we didn't talk about, ironically given the name of this show, is media. And we didn't really get into kind of diversity within media. And for many years, media options for marketers were relatively limited, right? There was kind of mass media generally. But over the last decade, when media's fragmented, of course, there are media opportunities that can connect far better, with diverse audiences, like on their terms, with content for them. And that's maybe been a bit of a barrier, or something which maybe some marketers didn't understand, how to access those media opportunities, how to do it in the right way with the right message as well. So perfect opportunity to bring in Chris. Let's bring Chris in to show, because he knows a lot about this.
Hello, Chris.
How you doing?
So we're going to talk, hopefully you heard a bit of that long rambling intro.
Yeah.
Chris, so you set up a business a couple of years ago called Brand Advance, and hats off to you. And you've been a prodigious and phenomenal entrepreneur, now in control of, I think, 3 or 4 businesses that have kind of spun off of that. Just first, maybe just for those that don't know, just explain what Brand Advance is, and then I want to dig into the story that got you there because I think it's fascinating.
Okay, Brand Advance is a diversity media network. So we have went around about 52, 53 countries and took all of the off mainstream media. So whether it's Black or Indian or Muslim or
Just watch your mic there. We can't hear you very well. It's catching on you.
whether it's the off mainstream, so whether it's Black, Indian, Muslim, Pakistani, disability, another religion, LGBTQ plus, etc., and across EU, across America, across Australia, Canada, and put them all into one place. Built some, use various technologies that other networks already use, but because they haven't been getting the same commercial spend within these, within media that's called niche, let's say. We've now sort of teched them up, put the technology in their publications and platforms, and then made a walled safeguarding so that brands now can reach, different demographics without using things like keyword block lists, etc.
Yeah. And that's the kind of the key to it, isn't it? It's really the keywords. Explain that, because some keywords, marketers were settling on some keyword lists.
Yeah.
What people used to unfortunately call blacklists and whitelists, which they don't anymore, hopefully. But keyword lists, which were maybe with some innocent good intent, but that was excluding them reaching certain parts of their consumer base.
So there's two things. One, there was the misunderstanding of what different demographics media is. LGBTQ plus media is not sexually explicit content. In most agency groups, any LGBTQ plus publication is already tagged by the IAB's definition of sexually explicit content straight away, and Black content that's talking about Black Lives Matter is not racist content. It's Black people talking about issues that represent them. So there was that was a main problem, just sort of blanket blocking of whole demographics, and then keyword blocks as well. So some of the most blocked words are interracial, Muslim, gay, lesbian is actually the most blocked word out of any. So, murder and gun and lots of other worse words, like lesbian is the most blocked. And so these words have been blocked. Black has been blocked because it could put you next to, on the big World Wide Web, it could put you next to gang-related content. LGBTQ plus has been blocked because people thought it might put you next to an unsavory picture, or what else? Mine's gone blank on another example, but you get the point. You get the point.
That kind of thing. And those are, as I said, those are decisions that marketers have made. Maybe not even really that intentionally, but they've focused on this kind of, because they are aware these lists they've got to kind of make. It has two big implications, I guess. One is that the marketer's not reaching the right people.
Yeah.
But also equally importantly, their money is not reaching the right media outlets, I guess, right? Because it's preventing, some what you called it niche, so I can use that word, maybe niche content from receiving the ad dollars, which maybe it's not in relation to the eyeballs or relation to the users that they have.
Yeah. I mean, what are we all talking about now? Governments might be cookie blocking, third-party cookie blocking might mean that we can't do as much targeting as we used to. So we're all talking about context again now. Yeah. Context is king, just like content was king a few years ago. What's more contextual than Black people in Black media, or LGBTQ plus people in LGBTQ plus media? You can make any piece of content really resonate because one defining fact about everybody that's going to read that, or if you can't assume that everyone that's LGBT, it's only LGBTQ plus people that read that content, but they're going to have a high affinity to that demographic. It might be Gen Z where 40% don't identify as heterosexual or something like that. So I think you said it at the beginning. I don't understand lots of things about our industry. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. I love how we are entrusted with the ability to be emotive, to make people happy, to make people sad. Advertising is used in pretty much every country, even countries where, they might be a little bit more locked down on freedoms than we are, because it's used for propaganda. Propaganda is just advertising done by government.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And we have this massive privilege to be able to change society. If you think about in the 70s, nobody wore a seatbelt, or very few people did. Then you had that ad of Cluck Clink. I've forgotten. Well, I wasn't there, but that click. What was it? It was like Cluck Click.
Yeah.
And now, if you get in a car and somebody doesn't put their seatbelt on, you pretty much sit there and give them the death stare until they put it on. So advertising just changes everything. What it can also do is change what we think society should be, what our perception. It can open our minds, open our hearts, open our sort of perception of the world around us.
That's an
go on.
Sorry, Chris, that's a really interesting.
We're losing David's connection. David, you're going to have to
see me.
Yeah,
sorry, have I frozen?
It doesn't very often happen on MediaSnack. We're normally good. Your connection's bad, David. We'll keep going.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'll keep. I want to just understand a bit more about the motivation. So when you set up this network, what was the motivation? Was there a commercial motivation to kind of try and find a commercial opportunity in something that wasn't already there, or was it a slightly higher purpose that you wanted to address by launching it?
I don't know if I'd call it a higher purpose, but I'm the father of 2 kids. One is black and one is white. They both live off Bank of Dad, so as a consumer to any brand, they are both, whatever I say yes to is what they buy, and what I say no to is what they don't. So equal. Yet my black kid, I was being given keywords by clients saying, I don't want to speak to your black kid, but your white daughter's fine. Basically, if I'm looking at a keyword block list and the top 10 have got black man, interracial, well, there's my mixed race son, and just because of how he identifies or the contextual environments he's going to find himself in. And I was saying yesterday that he thinks he's going to be a rapper, and I'm really sorry, Jerome, but you are crap. So he's not going to be a rapper, but he thinks he is going to be. So he's going to find himself in media, perfect media for Adidas, perfect media for anybody that wants to sell something to a kid that's influenced by fashion and music and lifestyle, and then influences his friends as well, because they all think he's a great rapper as well. Honestly, it's crazy. But that it baffled me. Like, why? What has he done? The very fact that just because his dad, his mum is a white German lady. I've never called her a lady. I mean, she's a white German female, my ex-wife. And so it just seemed weird that because I gave him brown skin, he was looked at by the industry differently. Yeah, because Vic, his mum, gave my daughter white skin and blonde hair and blue eyed, she was thought of as a prize win for a marketeer. And so that's why I set it up. I didn't know it was going to be commercially successful, but I didn't set it up thinking I wasn't going to make a bob or two. So, I wanted to make money, and I seen the stupidity of the industry, and I apologize. Yeah. I'm not saying, our industry is full of, you've had them on here. You mentioned Mark Ritson and all. We have got brains of the world in our industry, some very clever people that really have their finger on the pulse of society and looking and fixing problems for their clients and reaching and helping them reach the world. How did nobody think that if you've got 2 kids and one's a different color, every day we've been going to work and people were asking me to come into work and to block my son but advertise to my daughter? And I At first it was a, what is this? Second, it was a little bit of an annoyance, until it was a big flame in my belly that just said, like, no, I don't come from this background. Haven't had to go through the ranks of what you've got to do. And there's lots of things done just because that's always the way they've been done. And it was just like, well, this is just stupid. And I'm not, like, if you're not gonna, gobbing off about it on stage here, there and everywhere is one thing, but actually I wanted to give a solution to it.
Yeah.
And the solution was pretty simple. Like, if you think, why are all these words blocked? It's because the internet is a big bad place. It's not all bad, but there's a lot of bad on it. And you've got to find the good within a sea of possibly not so good.
Yeah.
Why don't you just take all the good out and stick it over there and then call that the new good internet? And now you don't need to block black, because there's no gang related content in there, because I've only chosen good black publishers. There's not going to be an unsavory picture, because I've only put good LGBTQ plus publications globally.
We should point out that, Chris, as well, but you and I talked about this, nobody had done that really until that point. So as you say, there's lots of smart brains in marketing. I think, but you and others are helping marketers. I don't think they question the hypothesis here, right? Which is that they know it's wrong. And I know that when you present it to some marketers, they immediately stand up and say, right, yeah, we're going to change that, which is great. And that, that's why you're sitting on such a good business. Because it's commercially, it's an easy sell relatively, right? Because it's something that marketers will lean into given the opportunity, and you're giving them the opportunity. Before we get into the specifics of that, though, you made a reference there to Germany. So there must have been a point that you were on army training in Germany, right? Mm-hmm. How on earth do you get from a field in Germany to creating an ad network? To reference what you just said, by the way, which is that you and there's a handful of others that are pushing similar things in different areas, but in our industry, coming in from a completely different background with a different wired brain, right? Different way of thinking, different skill set. Super helpful, I think, to challenge some of the conventions here. So I'd love to know that. How do you get from army training to?
Well, I can tell you how I got from it. A little bit of an accident, I would say, in some bits. So, born in the Isle of Man, had periods in and out of care, joined the army, was involved in an IED in the army. So I was blown up in Iraq. I went to Iraq and Afghan, went back to Iraq, and then was in a coma for 8 weeks. And then when getting out of the coma, I now have epilepsy, so I can't, epilepsy and a rifle don't go so well. So that was career number one, sort of ending. And then career number two, if you just want the truthful story, Manchester has all night nightclubs. I went into a nightclub on the Saturday and came out at 12 o'clock on the Sunday afternoon. So you can imagine the state that people come out of nightclubs on a Sunday afternoon. Like, people are going to church and stuff, and there's me coming out of this dark hole club, really right next to actually where the Hacienda used to be. I'm walking through Manchester city centre through Market Street. Somebody came up and said, "Oh, you're half decent looking. Here, I'm a modelling scout. Do you want to come and do this shoot?" I went on this shoot anyway. So anyway, I wake up, I find the card. I went on this shoot. And while I was on the shoot, so it was for Virgin Media, and it featured in the ad. And while I was there, the lady was the director, but her husband was, he had been in the army as well. So we just hit it off straight away. But now he was the channel manager at Price Drop TV in Manchester. And so we're talking about the army and stuff like that. And he'd been in the signals, etc. And then he's like, "Do you know what? I really like you, son. And do you want to come and do a screen test next weekend for Price Drop TV?" And I was like, "I've got nothing else to do. I've not really got a job. The army's going to pay me for the next 6 months or something. So I've got nothing to lose." So I went to it and I got it. And then sort of that led to a really brief And believe me, you'll see we're on YouTube now. If you look on other things on YouTube, I really never want to revisit there again in my life. But I had my own chat show for a little bit. Really bad. Nobody watched it, but I got it. And then I would be filming these things in studios and stuff. And I've always been inquisitive. Like, my mind works a barrel and 2 planks. That's, you know, face a problem. There's a river. You need to get over it. There's 2 planks and a barrel. Go, you know, and that's how my mind works. I can do that command task. I'm ace at it. You know, I can get 20 people across with that barrel and 2 planks. And that's just methodically what makes sense. You know, that's how I come to any problem. So first production, I was watching people doing stuff. 1, there was nobody that looked like me. And I was sort of like, okay, that's a bit weird. But 2, there was things just done because that's the way it's always being done, you know. And then when they allowed me to have my own show, I was allowed to sort of say, let's try this, let's have a go at this. And that's the crossover bit. I've not told many people this part, actually. That's the crossover bit from army into sort of media, and then media. I then went behind the camera, and I've worked on projects like I was one of the directors in the final of The Apprentice in 2016. So like, it's directed by 2 people. The finals are, and I directed half, and somebody else at Boundless directed the other half. No, people don't know that neither. It's when Alana won with the cupcakes. But yeah, and that's where it came from, really, you know. And then I did more production, and then I worked in a little bit of out of home. I worked with another founder who is now on my board, but I started when he had found his company. Andrew Newman had founded do.com, and I was sort of employee number 3. Came from Manchester, went down, I had a bit of money in the bank because I'd had my spit of 5 minutes of fame, and then realized this is not going to last me a full career. You need to go and do something else. So, and then came to London and worked at do.com for a bit. And then that's when I would go into Mindshare, was working with Wavemaker, you know, working with all these agencies, doing some fantastic work, but still, you know, sat there at a table with 8 other people, let's say, being given a problem, and I was coming up with an answer that nobody else was coming up with. And if you're arguing with 8 people, you tend to just keep, you know, backing down a little bit because maybe they know something I don't know. And in the end, I just thought, maybe you don't actually know something I don't know. And the only way to do this is to do it myself. And at the same time, you know, as I've already said, there was the thing with, why are you speaking to my daughter and not my son? And then it's sort of, I've never been quiet. You could probably tell I haven't shut up for the last 20 minutes, but also never been afraid to fail because I came from nothing anyway. So I've got absolutely nothing to lose. If I leave the world as I came into it, then so be it. But I have a nice Audi R8 at the moment. So at least I had fun in the middle. You know, like, so, and if a problem is there and, you know, you can fix it with a barrel and 2 planks, then fix it with a barrel and 2 planks. We don't need to do, what's the definition? You know, think of what's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Our industry's been doing that for a long time, you know. We want to get from A to B, but I'm going to do the exact thing that I've been doing that keeps landing me at C. You know,
the provocation is good, isn't it? I mean, to try and change. And I think, you know, I'm sure you're finding, we find all the time, you know, there's not many marketers that say that they know everything. You know, they're always open to provocation and always open to new ideas. You know, I think that's what makes a great marketer, right? You've got to keep your eyes and ears open all the time.
Yeah.
Where did it start then? So once you had that, you know, you had that kind of like moment where you maybe saw an opportunity or something that needed fixing.
Yeah.
Did you start by just trying to find the publishers first? Was that the idea? And then kind of recruit them and yeah.
So I needed to live at this time as well. So I got a job as the commercial director at Gay Times. at the same time, I was secretly registering at Company House, Brand Advance. And so worked there for 8 months and basically just learn at being commercial director of Gay Times. I was learning what the publishers, and I was watching them have these arguments for 500 quid with for publication, but then knowing that other bigger publications are getting paid a whole lot more, that kind of thing. So for the same size of an audience, 1 million males that are influenced by fashion, you're going to find that on Gay Times, definitely, but you're going to find that in other publications as well. But the price that somebody's willing to pay for both of them audiences, you would not believe. They're arguing for 400 or 500 quid. Yeah. So that sort of gave me the insight of a publisher, and James, who had just bought the publication, gave me the opportunity to see how that's working and how can I make sure that my business answers all of the questions that they need answering, making them have more revenue. That we've soon found out that bit was easy. But, because they've just always been getting the leftovers of commercial. Yeah. If you would even call it that they got a slice of the commercial pie, I don't even think this diverse media was even in the pie. It was if any crumbs fell off, then we'll take it over there. They weren't. You never seen diversity media in any sort of death by PowerPoint that you were given at any event. So
the right audience. I mean, it should. I mean, maybe hopefully we're moving all towards that, but for the right audience and the right message, it's a premium. It should be a premium buy, right? Because as you say, it's a protected audience.
And I mean, I was talking about the privilege that we have as marketeers. Like, we're asked to do one job, and it's very simple. A client says to us, can you get my product in front of as many people as possible and make them want it? No matter what that product is, that's all they ask us to do. The rest is semantics, but that's that one job. And this is where my mind has always struggled, because they've asked me for this one job. So good, that's what I'm going to do. That means getting it in front of everyone in society. If we're going to classify, and that means having tools that can do that as well, not tools that are just plugged into what society calls mainstream and keeps giving me out statistics that only deal with that part of society. When I walk around, I live in London. When I walk around London, I know that it's nearly 50% non-white. You can see it, the stats show it now. I think it's about 52%, isn't it? So, there's 300 languages here. We can see what society is. I understand in some parts of the UK, it might not be so obvious, but, we've all hopped on a train or a bus that drove us out of our little town enough to see the, people that don't look like ourselves. So we know they're there in society. There's not a single marketeer in this country that can say, I didn't realize that there wasn't just white people in the UK. So wouldn't we be looking to try and reach them? Weren't we mandated with every RFP we've ever done? Are we not mandated to get that in front of as many people as possible and make, and then the sort of the privilege of our jobs is to be emotive with that. Maybe he's even change society. Maybe he's even leave the world a better place than day before the ad was shown. They're the nice to haves. Diversity is not a nice to have. Speaking to Black people or Muslims or LGBTQ plus or disability isn't the nice to have bit. That's the bit that we were mandated at the beginning. And like you said, I just look at it differently. I don't understand why I don't understand why we have diversity conferences. Like, we've never had a straight white person conference, have we? Like, ever. And
you bring this kind of contrarian kind of attitude and this energy to the WFA's diversity board, right? So how have you found yourself on that, and what influence can you bring to bear with the WFA?
I'm sure they won't mind me saying, I think everyone's scared of me, because I'm like, you are? Why are you saying that? Just because you've been saying that for 5 years? No, I think I love the board, love it, because the good thing with everyone in the WFA is they're open to new ideas. you know, from Stephen right down, or Stefan, sorry, right down. They're open to new ideas, you know, and to thinking of things differently. And then if you can convince enough people sat at that table, they'll stick it in a document that everyone else gets to read, which is the bit we're in at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I sit on a few boards. Some you might think are random, but I sit on the board of the Victoria and Albert Museum. You know, I sit on my own 4 boards. They're the not so fun ones. And you know, I'm on that diversity board. I've been on advertising's board for the last few years. I've recently come off that. You know, anywhere I am, I'm just going to talk this truth.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that changes is I'm getting a little bit more knowledgeable as I go along. You know, I'm learning stuff. I'm nicking stuff off the team behind me and then regurgitating it out, you know, to higher up people. Let's say I'm from the military, so I always think in rank, but it's not really rank in the real world, is it? But you know what I mean. The people with influence, I'm just spitting it out, and they're going, "Oh, that's really good." Yeah, I nicked it from an intern in the office. But I make sure, you know, with my company. I don't know if you've seen the post I posted out not long ago, but I know that we're agencies and companies should be saying more what's the makeup of them. So I posted out, you know, we're sort of half non-white, we're half female, we're 24% LGBTQ plus, we're 10% disability, we're 6% over 50. Actually, I think that's risen recently. You know, I'm making sure it's like Noah's Ark in our companies. There's 2 of everybody, and making sure that that's represented, and that helps me to learn stuff and for us to tackle, not just me, for the whole companies to tackle in a different way, think about the problem differently, and, you know, give a different answer to the client to consider. So, you know, we're lucky at the moment, 90% of them are going with what we say. But in the end, hopefully, I say this a lot and the board kill me, but in the end, brand advance should become pretty obsolete. Like, you don't need we've got enough specialists in our industry. Like, gosh, have we got enough specialists? You know, we don't need another specialist in our industry, and having a specialist to help you to speak to Black and gay people when your agency is mandated to speak to society. You know, somebody in the end is going to go, I don't know what's going on here. Can you just figure out how to do what he's doing? Because I'm paying.
Is that when you know you'll have succeeded? When your company becomes obsolete?
Well, when you just get acquired by one of the other agencies,
well,
right? That's the route to success.
Sold it before then, before the world catches up. Yes, as long as I've sold and I'm on a yacht. And yes, when I'm on my yacht, in Cannes, looking at the whole of the industry now doing what we do, yes, I will say, well done, Chris. You're going to leave the world a little bit better than you found it, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'm waffling a bit.
That's good. Well, listen, I mean, I think it's a fascinating story, and I'm glad that we kind of got to lift the curtain a little bit on the entrepreneurial journey, because, you know, the ad industry, or the marketing may be slightly different. We're talking about the ad industry. Very few people kind of enter it with intent, right? Very few people enter it other than it's some way accidentally, and we've all got our slightly peculiar routes of getting into advertising. You probably aware, there's a very famous speech that Steve Jobs delivered, his Stanford speech, right? And one of the things that he'd said then, which has always stuck with me, and I don't hold him up in this, you know, it's idolic position, but I think it's a really interesting perspective. He says, when you look back over your shoulder at your life, the dots make sense, but they do not make sense when you look ahead, right? There's no point trying to strategize the future, because you just don't know. And I was reminded of that just listening to your story. I thought, wow, like those dots are kind of crazy dots, right? But when you look back, that's exactly why you're sat there. It's because of all of these different kind of diverse things that you've done, and different places that you've worked. So I just think I love these stories.
I say that kind of thing, but I reference it to a Manchester director, but Slumdog Millionaire,
Yeah.
that's when I watched that, I remember watching it the first time. I was like, oh my God, that's just like my life. Like, you know, I needed to go in care. I needed to be in the army. I needed to be born black. I needed to have a black and a white kid to ever have formed Brand Advance. You know, if any of them had gone, just got took out, I would have never formed it. I can't think of another route to it. But yeah, same thing.
That's amazing. Well, listen, thanks for sharing the story. And listen, best of luck with the business. Anyone that's interested, the company's Brand Advance. If you've got a kind of question about how to do some of the things that Chris is talking about, you know, highly recommended. Just to finish up, because you said, you know, you have fire in your belly. You've got a kind of, you've got an entrepreneur's vision, right, for kind of building something, which is really good to hear. But also, you want to have an impact. Yeah. Just a relatively short term. I mean, what is feasible in the next year? What do you want to see? What change do you want to see in the next year from the industry?
I want to change. No, I want the commercial reason for the change that's already happening to continue. That change has already continued. You know, we spoke about it yesterday. You know, 9-10 months ago, we called the black bush driver a low-paid worker. We called the Indian lady in Tesco's a low-skilled worker. We called the Eastern European people cleaning at the end of the day at the hospital. We called them low-paid and low-skilled, you know, and now we call them key workers. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. That change just now needs to continue. They were always key workers. Black lives always mattered. LGBTQ plus free zones in Poland should never exist, you know. That all of these things, let's just continue it. We've all opened our hearts and minds, and we all, you know, look at our own privilege now and look at our own way that we've walked a path through life, and can we walk a better path? Or actually, are things I do or things I represent? I think the simple answer is we're all allies. We're all pretty much allies, you know. You're allies to me. You put me on your show to let me speak my story, you know. But now we need a world of advocates. Allyship was last year. Now, if you see something wrong, you need to stand up and say, that's wrong. I don't agree. I think we should try and change that. So I think change from ally to advocate.
Good. I like that. Very good. And marketers, you know, with your encouragement and with others, and the WFA, as we know, have been a great platform for that, should change their behavior because they should. I mean, they should do it because they should. And I think they're starting to realize that. Mm-hmm. But they should also do it eventually. I think that's what you were mentioning at the beginning. They should do it because it makes commercial sense as well.
Yeah.
I think reason to do it, and it should be a good business reason. Otherwise, it becomes temporary, doesn't it? And it becomes maybe a gesture. But it hopefully you're helping people prove that there's commercial benefit in doing so. Yeah. In having that kind of wider impact. Chris, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Speak soon.
Cheers, Chris.
Good.
Fascinating.
Good. We love an entrepreneur story. We need more entrepreneurs on the show.
We do.
Because the industry is becoming so beautifully fragmented. You know, there's lots of specialisms popping up, offering marketers all kinds of interesting things. Yeah, and all of our routes. One day we'll do your route into advertising, David, which is particularly salubrious.
Let's not do that one. Let's not do that one anytime soon.
That's a particularly X-rated episode. We'll come on that cliffhanger. We'll come back. Thank you very much for watching. As I say, please subscribe to be updated of future episodes. Don't miss next week's end of year review, where we will also be announcing the 2020 MediaSnack Person of the Year. But thank you for watching. Take care.
Bye for now.